You may
Hi
have to
everyone.
WhatsApp me.
Hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining another Lead Squared webinar. This is a special Africa edition. I often forget to do this, so I will do this time. I am Shibani and I work for the marketing team at Lead Squared. Again, thanks so much for joining this session. As I told you, this is a special Africa edition. We are discussing maximizing debt collection efficiency for the coming year. Some of the things that we will cover in the discussion today are, of course, the trends that are driving loan sales growth in the African market, challenges offered by the current collection methods, and the role and the benefits of technology in optimizing this whole process. So now let me tell you a little bit about the speakers today. Coming to our key speaker for the day, which is Craig Nell. He is a management consultant at ICANN. Now, he comes with 2 decades of experience in credit and debt collection with clients in the education, debt collection, software, financial services, banking, and training industries. His advisory approach is based on collaboration between people and technology. All right. So, keeping up with technology, let me introduce you our second speaker, our very own Chantel Fraser, who is the VP of Africa Sales at Lead Squared. So, she heads the Africa Enterprise Business for Lead Squared. Now, she is on a mission to help business leaders create systems that convert leads to high paying customers. So, in her own words, systems are about the long term process, and in the end, process always wins. So, with that, Chantel, Craig, over to you. Looking forward to a great discussion. I would also like to tell the audience that we are here to take your questions, comments, anything at all. If you want to say, please do share it on chat, and we will take it up towards the end of the session. Over to you, Chantel.
Thanks, Shabani. And thank you to our audience for joining Craig and I today for our last Africa edition webinar. For many of us, this is the last stretch before we put our feet up and recuperate before getting ready for the next year. I am particularly excited for our discussion today. Back in 2009, I was really lucky to have worked for a debt collection business and actually went on to opening my own debt collection business back in 2010. And at that point, that's when I first met you, Craig. And since then, Craig, I
Absolutely.
mean, yeah, you've like Shabani said, you've got over 2 decades of collections experience. And I think what is really valuable for our audience today is that your collections experience, covers every aspect of the collections industry, from insurance to education, being in a collection firm. Some of you will, know the term EDC or external debt collector, banking, lending, credit bureau environments, which is a big tool or resource that collection companies use. And so you've seen collections from all aspects. I don't think there's any aspect you haven't covered. So thank you, very much for making the time to share your insights with our audience today. Now, I would like to just start off with, setting some context here, Craig, and, maybe just looking at, as it is the Africa edition, in your opinion, what are some of the essential drivers of credit demand in Africa currently?
Thank you, Shivani, and Chantal. Thanks for the opportunity. Yes, it's a very good question. What's driving the demand? And I think the internet has really taken Africa by storm. And I think I just thought I read a stat the other day. In a place called Botswana, there are more cows than humans and more cell phones than cows in a small population. So I mean, it's I think it's the access to credit. A lot of guys are focusing on speed to the market. So those days of walking into bricks and mortar is gone. You can apply for. The other day, my bank says you qualify for X click, and it takes 2 minutes. So that's the reality in Africa. Consumerism is also another driver. People are not patient enough to wait to buy items and wait for it 3 to 4 months. They want it immediately. So that's another huge driver. And something strange that I'm finding, Chantal, I think we'll discuss it perhaps later on. It's people's standards of living has changed significantly. So a large portion of the disposable income is servicing debt. I mean, there's something that I looked at the other day. I think about 10 years ago when I worked for a company, it was unheard of that we would buy fuel with credit cards, but that's the
Mm.
norm today. I think Africa has really caught up with the rest of the world, and I think from a technology point of view, um, um, we are there, really moving at a massive pace, despite where we're located. And also, if you look at the new kind of lenders that's popping up, it's lots of new lenders that don't have buildings. You know what I mean? So it's all about the technology. So yeah, I think it's a good thing for Africa, and may it continue. Obviously, our speciality is how do we manage that risk, and are we ready to kind of counter that? So I think that's kind of where I'm at. I hope I answer your question.
No, that's great. I think, yeah, as you said, I mean, there's just so many drivers and things that have changed in that landscape. Yeah, I mean, your points around people buying fuel on credits. I mean, the same thing goes for food, but it really just is incredible how these drivers are shifting. And I mean, on that note, I think the stat may be slightly out, but I mean, at the moment, the current household debt to income ratio in Africa stands around 75%.
Correct.
So, taking that into account, how should lenders factor in this stat while undergoing their transformation journey?
I think having worked, I work with quite a few lenders, as you know, and I think we quite sophisticated in the lending part, credit granting part, and in fact very sophisticated. I think some of them set quite a few benchmarks across the world, and they partner with bureaus. So I think we quite sophisticated in Africa from a credit granting point of view. I think where we're lagging behind, Chantal, is in the collections catching up, and that comes down to lenders. Are you investing in your collections department? And I've been in that space too many times. In the next 2 months, February and March, it's lovely now building up to Christmas, Chantal, but what happens when you've granted the loans, you've given extra facilities, and then everybody, the finance department or the risk department, comes to you guys. Come on, what are you going to do to collect more money? You know, and I think that's where I think in the collection space we're lagging behind, and lenders are. And I'm a very honest person. Lenders are at fault. You have to invest in technology in the collection space. Throwing people at this problem is no longer an efficient way of collecting money. We have to look at the technology available to us. And again, in Africa, we are up there. We have the technology and the companies available to us. So yes, it's a challenge, and I think we South Africa done some good work in 2007 where we there's this huge focus on affordability,
Yes.
and you get penalized. You can in fact lose your license as a credit provider, or you can get very stiff fines. And I think that's a very, very good a kind of discipline, with the regulators working with lenders. So yeah, but it is a challenge, and people have to grow their books, and I think that's just how it is. It's just the whole concept of consumerism, as I've mentioned earlier on, the demand for credit, and the fact that people are financing fuel and food with it. It's a happy place, I think, for lenders in Africa. I think the environment that needs to catch up is the collection space, and I have to be hard on both sectors, if I must be honest.
Yes. No, I mean, it makes complete sense. And as a management consultant now, Craig, I mean, when you're working with organizations in your advisory capacity, I mean, your approach is based on a collaboration between people and technology. And I can add a few things here too, but what are some of the downsides of traditional collection operations on customer experience?
Um, it's a two-part kind of question. I think what's the downside? I can make this prediction in February next year that the lenders list participating in this in this talk is going to see deterioration in the portfolio, which is always historic, and then they'll say to the collections department, throw more people at it. That's all over the world. that is what's likely to happen. And also, and I think it's we just, like I've mentioned earlier, the transition to partner with companies that have the technology solutions is too slow. I think we have the bandwidth, we have the skills in Africa, and I think the collaboration is not only between the collection agent and how they use the technology, but it's also the lenders and saying, let's embrace this. There's very, very sophisticated technology available, and also I think that on the other on another point, customer experience is, we need to be mindful of stop forcing your customers to use your technology. Give them options. And traditionally, we build our contact centers on call centers. I don't answer calls anymore. My wife gets frustrated because this is the time of the year everybody think that you engaging with me, you forcing me to use either your payment channels, which is now debit orders, or telephone. And we now, I think we are that sophisticated in Africa to, I think lenders, we have to give consumers options on prepayment, restructuring their debt, and how they engage with us, and give them options. Don't force them into a box. Be mindful of the fact that the new generation, which is my kids' age, don't give them a call. Calling my own 20-year-old is an absolute disaster. She will not answer a phone. Just says, what's going on with you? Talk to me via technology. So I think let's get ready for this new kind of environment. But I think the other important aspect also, if you do have a contact center with resources, with staff, they are your most expensive collection tool. So be smart in how you segment your debt. So in other words, not all your debtors need to be called. Send them a WhatsApp, send them an email. Send an email when it suits them. Let them engage with you with the technology. The reason I'm saying this, Chantal, sorry, I'm going to
No, it's
I'm going
valuable,
ahead of
Craig.
myself. But the reason I'm saying this is that from a lending point of view, I mentioned and said earlier on that the lenders are very sophisticated, and I think up there with the big players in the world on engaging with consumers when they haven't used the product yet. So they'll engage with you with Twitter or with Facebook, social media. Come on, Chantal, apply for a loan, blah, blah, blah. Your experience is awesome and seamless. Then Chantal goes into arrears. Guess what happens? We call you on the phone. But don't you know that I prefer using email or text, whatever? So I think that end-to-end customer experience need to be thought of. And I've just done some work with a client trying to find collection software, and the client stopped the process saying, you know what, we need this to actually, we need our customer service department part of this. We need our sales as part of this process, because the reason for that is because our consumer might be a customer in day one, but he becomes a debtor 3 months later. Then we treat them extremely different. In summary, there are not that many new customers available. So the focus should be on how can we retain customers, and two things you need to focus on: don't force them into your technology, give them options. Make the investment, give them options, but I think use technology. The way forward for us is not throwing more people at it. Your challenge will be, Chantal, is the training of these agents, because generally they've been recruited to speak on a phone. What we need is people to do this in future. So I wonder, yes, I don't mind speaking to a bot, but often I would like to speak to a human that understands the debit and credit. And so there has to be some transition on how we employ people, and focusing on their skills. But okay, now I've just gone on a tangent. But
But
yes, I'm passionate
no, but
about
Craig,
the
yeah, I want to just add on to what you said maybe 2 or 3 sentences ago, is that, you know, when I'm consulting and speaking with clients, you know, that are wanting to put in place a collections, you know, technology to drive, you know, efficiencies in the collections process, I will tell you that 9 out of 10 times on that exact first call, they immediately start getting people, heads of sales departments, heads of operations, credit, customer experience, customer support, and marketing, because essentially you don't start at collections, you start with sales, right? And the profile of our debtor has changed today. I mean, back in 2010, I mean, a debtor was like, you had a bad stigma. it was like, oh, you get a judgment, you bad debt. But these days, like you said, people are buying fuel, people are buying food to survive, and and repaying it, like almost like a monthly kind of installments kind of method. That's profile of a debtor has changed. And so that is why you're absolutely spot on that you need to have all these functions from sales to service to support retentions, collections connected so that you can
Absolutely.
deliver an omni-channel experience. And we're really lucky in today's age, and it doesn't sound like a long time ago, but what I will tell you is that back in 2010, when I was setting up my collections operation, there were no cloud solutions. We had to put in place hardcore physical servers. If you wanted to get onto the panel or do collections for any major, credit provider, there's no cloud telephony. There was no omni-channel communication available in the tech platform. I mean, if you wanted to, in most cases, like we could call, but if you really wanted to get fancy and send an SMS out to a debtor, it would be a matter of doing that on a separate system and then trying to get those responses back into the collection system, which never really actually worked. So, if you just consider the volume of collection cases or accounts that are being dealt with, you cannot do this stuff on Excel. There's no ways. And so just taking all of these things into account and looking back from where we've come from, like, why do you think contemporary debt collection processes suffer from low efficiencies today, from what you see today? Maybe not as far back as 2010, but what are those inefficiencies that you identify now?
We don't have enough time for this answer, but I've done some work for a non-bank lending company who convinced me that them working on Excel is still the most efficient way. So again, it's coming back right at the top. And it's where collections is positioned in your business. And I've years ago coined the phrase, your ability to grant credit is directly linked to your ability to collect. And so that's an important point. And I think there's also, to improve efficiencies, it's the quality of the staff. We need to move away from employing bulldogs that consistently fight with our customers. These people need to understand that we need these customers, and they need to understand the edge of what customer service is like. So consider that as well. And then all the strategic partners you do have, like your collection software providers, such as yourselves and others, your omni-channel communication guys, your payment guys, these guys have expertise. Lenders, stop being so arrogant. Partner with them and say, listen here, we'll use your technology, but what do you have to offer us? So that we can go on the same journey, so that you, even with efficiencies, set them targets that's directly linked to your debtors book. You know what I mean? Even if it's per delinquency, so that they can understand you. So that collaboration for me is, I've seen it work. It's not common, I think, but it's something that I believe is the way forward. And just to move out of the dark ages. And the argument is always that, yes, it's always worked. Why changed? The consumer's changing. I've just mentioned to you that my 20-year-old is now able to take out credit. How are you going to engage with this year and in 3 years' time? Because the older they get, and I've looked at the study that when consumers get in South Africa, when they're over the age, I think just after 38 or so, people they use your facility and settle within a month. You're not going to make money from them. You're going to make money from the next generation. So I think you need to just align with, how do these people engage with us? And when you look at your efficiency in my world is, what's been invoiced and how much can I collect? But the thing that we're missing is, do we know what it costs to collect $1? And that's what's missing. If you don't understand it, otherwise it's you might have all the best technology, but you're just spraying and praying, literally. So I think it's just collaborating with the resources, segmenting your book in a smart way. Don't force people to use the technology, but be very deliberate. And I think the final point on this, Chantal, is that get your partners to zone in with you on problem areas. Let them work with them. And I've done something weird many years ago, about 10 years ago. decided to collaborate with external debt collectors and get them into. So remember, these guys in South Africa are very hardcore and they compete with each other. And I said to them, today I'm your client. I am your client today. This is the problem that I have in the debtors book, 90 days plus. Can you help me find a solution? And the guys were strange and weird, but that was 10 years ago. So collaborate. There is the desperate. These guys know what they're doing. The software guys, the omni-channel guys, the payment guys do know what they're doing. And I think you should. The opportunity now is that we collaborate at the highest level, especially this time of the year. To be the best time to start looking ahead. So yeah,
Well, it
Chantal, that's kind of
certainly,
my response.
yeah, well, it definitely accelerates your time to market. And I mean,
Yep.
Craig, as you know, Lead Squared works across a number of industries. However, like financial services is definitely one of our largest industries that we service. And over the last 2 years, many financial institutions have started their digital
Excuse me.
transformation journey, and it's been very apparent and actually really encouraging to see that over the last 12 months, we've actually started seeing this digital transformation focus extend into the collections areas of businesses. So I certainly think that there are going to be some forerunners. The pace isn't where it should be, but just given that though, like we've been speaking about understanding your data and the different age groups. I mean, on average, 58% of customer interactions these days are now via digital channels. I mean, I do everything I possibly can to avoid speaking to somebody in a call center. It's just a painful experience. So it would make sense that there would be a growing prevalence of self-service payment gateways, like remote assistance, alternative payment modes, to keep lenders a primary choice for repeat borrowing. So from your perspective, Craig, can you describe some of the digital interventions that creditors could add to their processes to help maximize their recovery efforts in 2023?
Yeah, I think we touched on it earlier on. I think start with looking at the customer experience end to end. Don't you're spending enough time and adequate time to procure them, onboard them. Look at that end journey. To say, because obviously I know the lenders do know that there's some of the debtors they're happy to lose over time, but I think it's look at an integrated let's call it a digital journey, and then and it's we're gathering a hell of a lot of data on what people's preferences are. So if you're seeing that people prefer engaging on certain types of technology, then take it all the way through to your early stage. Have the technology, and even if you do decide to outsource to external debt collectors, select your partner smart. They say, I'm used to engaging with these guys via email. Do you have the same capability? You know what I mean? So I think that's kind of the way that you look at that journey till the end. And even I know at some point companies do sell their debt, but this guy, even in debt review in South Africa, after a few years they settle the debt. It's still, you can still kind of reignite that relationship with them. So I think be more deliberate. Invest more time and energy and resources in the collection space, because often with the companies that are engaged, the collections guys are saying, well, we don't have budget and nobody's investing. But I do know in Feb they're going to get the call every year. That's why I can relax now, because I know I'm going to be getting calls in Jan to say, how do we improve our efficiency? I said, but it's too late. How do you expect to improve it when Chantal, it takes up to 6 to 9 months to introduce new technology, and then you must still get your consumers used to the new technology because of the fraud that's so prevalent you know what I'm saying? People are very reluctant often to say, but why are you engaging with SMS or email, whatever the case may be? So I think we need to take our consumers on a journey. We need to be more deliberate in our and I think move away from this manual processing. This is those days are gone. It's just impossible to run businesses that way. And just by doing that, and then obviously invest in training your agents, the people that do engage with your consumer, and then let them move away from this aggressive bulldog scenario. How can I help you, Chantal? I see you going through a difficult time. Okay, you're struggling to repay your loan. these are the options we have available. Guess what that consumer is going to do? You know what? ABC Bank or ABC lenders helped me. They gave me alternative payment options. I'm going to be loyal and I'd rather pay my debt. And that's weird coming from a person who collected on vehicles and home loans, and you know what I mean.
Yes.
But my way of I've realized that we have to change the way we operate and use technology appropriately.
Craig, just on that point, what we also was quite interesting in this last, and I think in the last 2 weeks of November was the first time that a lender actually, reached out to me and said to me that you were talking about the customer experience, and the training people, moving away from that bulldog style. But, once you kind of hand debt over into the external debt collection environment, this particular lender wanted to extend the technology platform that we putting in place for them, but into their EDC environment. So a lightweight version. But the reason for that is because it's still an extension of your organization. And so, we're putting in place a lightweight version of our tech, to extend this. So it's just easy adoption and the processes and that whole customer experience continues. So you want to mitigate those risks. As you said, there's only so many consumers out there. Yeah. So, Craig, I want to go back, because there's still quite a bit that I'd like to cover. Sorry, I'm very excited to be having you on the call today. But I want to go back to that people and technology collaboration for a moment.
Okay.
And, no disrespect meant, Craig, to anybody out there, but I can give you tech and I can give you people, but what advice would you give to people in the lending industry? Like, what should you do when you have people and you have tech to bring it together? I mean, there's got to be something that makes it work, because otherwise, if it was that simple, everybody would just be winning and we wouldn't be having this conversation today. So, what is the right way to bring these two resources together?
I'm going to say something that's going to be strange. People collect money, not machines. So that contradicts what you're doing. And I think how do we respond to technology as lenders? As I said, it's a little bit strange at the moment, especially the slow uptake in Africa in the collection space. But it's going to get there, and I think if especially the users, the end users, the collection agents, if they see an SMS and email and the other technologies that's available as actually aiding them, as opposed to when I send an email, I might not get the commission. You know what I'm saying? So you must also understand. I always try to look at technology from the end user's point of view. Consumer, we spoke enough about the consumer, but what about, is it easy to use the technology? And secondly, do they understand their value in that process? So, and often I would start, when I do visit the company, I'd want to speak to the agents independently and ask them, do you know what your collection strategy is? What are you talking about? The dialer? No, that's not the strategy. It's machine. No, the software that I click on? No, that's not the strategy. Do you know that there are rules happening in the background and the rules have a reason? And that's what I learned in 2007 at a bank in Johannesburg, that whenever we introduce something, we had to spend enough time to explain how this thing works and what its objective is. An objective, if you're collecting on 30 days and there's $1 million outstanding, my job is to collect 80 or 90% of the $1 million. So when I make a payment arrangement, it can't be 200, the $200,000, if it makes any sense. So that's kind of the sweet spot, because if your end user do not want to use your technology, you can have the best in the world. Good luck. They will fall back to their old ways of operating. They'll go down and download their age analysis. They will outsource using Excel and sending files over the place. So it's incumbent on you as a service provider to not only show value in saying, I can implement this quite quickly, but I'm going to provide you with the support, and that's where the collaboration goes, and help them use the technology, help them show the value, not only through you're going to be efficient, in other words, you're going to collect more with less people, because that's normally your sales pitch. It is saying, how do you consistently collect better over time? And therefore, often it's also useful for me is get your end users involved in, from day one. Don't just dump technology. I'll give you one example. I implemented software for an education business 4.5 years ago. It took us 5 months to implement, to do the software integration, and 9 months for people to buy into it. You know why? They realized that, oh, my bosses is monitoring me because those, you know what I'm saying? So that was
Yes.
your first resistance. So the guys asked, but we're not seeing a lift in performance. It was the end users deliberately not using the technology, because the lesson I learned is engage. Do the change management, show them the benefits to them personally. Your consumer will benefit because now they might not be getting so many calls. They might be getting SMSs, emails, and other, that. So I think that's the one thing. And then also, I think it's time for us to start moving away from this call center voice situation, and start, investing in people being able to engage using email, SMS, WhatsApp, because that's people. And I've really seen. I've done a study where people don't answer the calls. I made 10,000 calls, 10% of the people answered, 70% of them were the right people. I sent the same people an email, 80% responded after 6 or 7 in the evening. Why? Because I didn't know my consumer, I didn't know my data. And the data saying, I'm a busy guy, I'm a teacher, I don't have time, I'm a policeman, I don't have time to answer calls. But at home, when I'm sitting after I got home, I'm able to respond via using other mediums. So I think to summarize it is, I think you'll be mindful that your technology might be great and it's going to deliver the benefits, but I think spend time in engaging with your end users, make sure that it's user friendly, make sure they understand their value to the process, because often they might also feel threatened. And guess the other area, your collection managers, collection departments, your outsourced departments, get them involved as well, because they might also feel threatened. So what are you doing to my job now? It looks like our call center is shrinking. Does it mean I'm going to lose my job? No, we want to use you differently. We want to
Yeah.
tap into your analytical capability. Maybe we can use it to design strategies. So I think, guys, it's great that we're moving in the right direction, but I'm telling you, make sure you engage with the people appropriately. Rather delay or extend your implementation time and spend about 80% of your time, because the techies will sort out the integration and all the cool stuff. But just make sure that because remember that collector or agent is going to be talking to your toughest debtors. And if they're unhappy with the technology and they don't trust it, it's game over. I don't care what technology you have. And again, for those of you that know me, you're going to say, "What the hell happened to this guy?" Well, I started collecting. I started collecting in an education environment where I realized that when you call a parent and say, "Chantal, you're in arrears," they said, "Well, you're throwing my child out of school." I said, "Hey, I better change my game plan." So I needed to change my game plan, and we've proven that it does work. So technology, people, please never overlook people. When people do feel threatened, tell them that there's an opportunity to enhance their skills. You know what I mean? And don't just be so eager to lose the staff and say, we've got a machine. It doesn't work, because there's a hell of a lot of IP in your staff that works with you. And I think you need to make it exciting for them as well.
Craig, I mean, it goes without saying. I mean, I'm a huge fan of technology and automation, in order to do things more efficiently. But I'm
Yeah,
also a huge fan of people, and automation does not mean no people. It means
correct.
using
Okay.
people in a smart way. And we've seen this, within a quarter. I mean, we're talking 3 months, working with collections, helping companies with collections. A big, credit providers like companies like Pepper, increased their collections performance by 22% in 1 quarter.
Wow.
So when that happens, those results already, all right, speak volumes to the agents that are sitting there, because
Absolutely.
a collection agent is your person, right? And if they've had an engagement with a debtor, using automations, when various signals happen, that matter's routed right back to that agent, so they lose that fear of, let me not let this matter out of my realm. They trust that those results are going to come back to them because they see it happening. And I mean, that's something that was approved in 3 months. So from an adoption perspective, you're absolutely right. You need to make sure that you're configuring and setting up the right kind of processes, and those results will benefit the collection agents because they paid on a large portion of their earning is on commission.
And incentive, yes.
Exactly. And when we look at when we're working with our collection customers, I mean, our method that we adopt is pretty much also a three-pronged type approach when it comes to digitalizing the collections process. And there's a big emphasis that we place on complete borrower management. Okay, and then again, the collections agents management, and then of course analytics. And there's so many components that go into each one of these aspects. But you've covered a little bit about it today. But when it comes to agent productivity, how do you believe automation in collections can help boost agent productivity?
Very good question. So agent productivity, I think what the role technology must play, and let's be clear on the technology we're referring to. Let's talking about your collections tool, whatever you want to call it, and then there's the payment tools, and then the communication channels. I think it has to there must be a benefit for them, is to say that these tools are here to assist you. Right? We're all targeting the same customer, and where in the past it used to be, it's not a threat, it's not here to replace you. It's here to enhance you. So I think one of the key things that we need to do, instead of rushing into introducing the technology, is prove to them how it's going to benefit them. And often, and one of the things companies do not do, because let's, for argument's sake, I've yet to see a company that sends SMSs, emails, makes calls, and able to prove that as a result of that tactic, there was a payment. And often agent incentives is only linked directly to a promise to pay they've made. So I would say, as a gesture, to get that productivity to prove, to say that this is going to help you, Craig, as the agent. You might not make the call, but as a result of your commitment to make that you've done exceptionally well, and was going to send a reminder, SMS, and email, it is caused that consumer to change the behavior. That's the one thing. The second thing is, stop this nonsense of taking people off the street, training them as quick as possible, and then expect them to collect your entire book. It's just crazy. It's ludicrous. Guys, our consumers are getting smarter. We've mentioned that. They are credit savvy. So therefore, spend time in training them. Spend time in training them to use your software properly. You get what I'm saying? Spend time to train them to how the strategy works. And most importantly, make sure that you have tools to help your debtors. So yes, so now what do we do with the scenario? Now, I've just done some work with a company where we're done with the top 10 objections in South Africa. And this isn't no reflection on anything. It was top 10. One of them included debt review, insolvency. And I said to the client, I've written close to 9,000 words. He says, what the hell are you doing? Are you trying to train them as lawyers? I said, well, just listen to this one. So listen to the one scenario. In the past, your agent contacted Chantal and says, Chantal, you are 3 months in arrears, you're behind in your payments on your loan, and Chantal says, I'm under debt review. Oh, sorry, ma'am, you're under debt review. We'll contact you again. End of the call. The difference is now, what stage are you in debt review? I said, what do you mean? Have you gone to a debt counselor? Have they completed the 17.1? I also noticed in our system that our client haven't notified us. Or you know what I'm saying? So
yes,
I think the future is to train your agents, take them to the next level, invest in training and their development, and train them. And also, don't rush in how they engage with the technology, because the technology that I've seen, and especially your product, does a lot of smart things. It does a lot of work that when I started collections many years ago, we worked off an A5. You had to literally send faxes. Everything is automated. So now it's purely reliant on the agent having the 2 or 3 minute conversation. And by the way, you know what? The dialers are fantastic. What's stopping you from extending that time? You know what I'm saying? So I think there's a lot of ways that we can improve, and I have to be biased towards the agent. I think invest in training them on how to engage the technology, show them the benefits of all this technology around them, that it's going to help them improve their income and their earnings. Guys, let's not fool ourselves. I haven't met too many career debt collectors. On average, they now debt collectors about 18 months where they'll be in your business and they'll leave it to go to the next company for $10 more, if not less. And the attrition rate now, what I know in South Africa is around about 30%. So I would rather spend a lot of time to retain those guys because the better they get on your portfolio, the better you get as well. So I think it's just finding the fine balance between showing them how the technology improves their ability to work through more debt, because that's the trick. The more accounts they work, the possibility of earning more is better. And then spend a lot of time with how they engage with the consumer and treat the consumer differently. I think that's the way forward. Again, apologize to all the staunch debt collectors out there, but I've gone soft in the last few years.
No, Craig, thanks. Yeah, and you have softened up a bit. But just to add on to that, it's really incredible. I've also owned a credit bureau and been in collection and financial services. So don't have the experience you do yet, Craig, but seen it from different sides. And one of the things that I've certainly get really excited about, when it comes to looking at Lead Squared for collections, is that when I say the word heavy lifting, and we just look at a couple of points, so imagine having a solution that does all this heavy lifting for you in the background, like creating a single view of the customer from the moment that they were acquired to that entire borrowing journey, the categorization, bringing into like you were talking about the debt review stages. I mean, these are all data points that basically inform your collection strategy that you are going to use for that consumer. It's no more, okay, we know that the banking people get paid on the 15th of December, so now we're going to phone them on the 14th to make PTPs so that they pay us when they get their bonus. It doesn't work like that, one size fits all anymore. And, doing this case, having tech that can do this case prioritization for you, and then pushing the case to the agent at the right time so that they can collect is really what makes the difference. And, yes, typically what happens is that agents are incentivized based on the value that they are collecting. I mean, that's how a collections company gets paid. But you want to drive the right behavior. And so what we've also done is that we've added what we call a performance management suite connected to this, because if you can just imagine an agent looking at a screen in front of them all day, and they've got a call, okay, depending on the consumer's preference. So whether I need to do a WhatsApp, an SMS, a call, send you an email, whatever it may be, right? Do a live chat. I'm doing it all on one screen. And the beauty here is that the people that are in the business and the back office that are doing the analytics now have complete data to actually inform the next steps, because you no longer have to rely on an agent to update. I made a call, this is the disposition, because it's all done automatically. And that's what digitalizing the collections process means. It's taking away that painful, repetitive, unnecessary work that we make agents do, So what we've seen as a result is that if you can you've been in many collection call centers before, but when a call center agent can see in real time what their current incentive pool is based on, whether it's number of calls, whatever activities or tasks you set, and even the revenue that they've collected, they can see that live in real time. Man alive, it changes the behavior in your call center environment. And those call center agents become your ambassadors to drive this behavior, because for them, earning an extra 500 Rand or 1,000 Rand or 2,000 Rand, because they increase their collections capability by 22%, is life changing for these kind of guys.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's very good points, and I think I left out the analytics, and obviously I've seen your technology, but I do think that there's another group of people that we are missing here: supervisors, call center managers. Often they are left with the thinking and what to call, which campaign to create, and for them, if you can say that the technology we're introducing now is going to free you up from writing reports on a Monday because it's all automated for you. Spend
Yes.
time engaging with the agents, spend time speaking to customers, and that the power of an agent seeing that incentive in front of them and understanding how they can influence the incentive is critical. Because yes, I can collect more money, but how do I keep this up next month?
Yes.
And then providing them with that insights through your analytics team and saying, look, you've done this because you do this well. Keep on doing that. These things you're not so great at, so we're going to help you and we're going to intervene there. That's what I call the secret sauce that you and I speak about. Is kind of taking all the heavy lifting away and getting your supervisors, call center managers, your strategists, and saying, look, this is our workforce. That the machine's doing its stuff on the side. Let's give them insights into how they can get better at what they're doing. That for me is that was powerful. And then your technology it sells itself basically. But I think it
Absolutely.
cannot go without the fact that you don't, even your strategy guys and they're often caught up in meetings for days. Why? Who's going to make that contact with the consumer at some point? Take that information to say that this, and I'll give you a simple example. Why aren't we telling our staff that we're doing campaign A in the next 10 minutes? Why does campaign A exist? Well, we've used the bureau score. What is a bureau score? You know what I'm saying? So when they engage with that data, that 5 minutes or 25 or 3 minutes, they have that understanding, and they can speak with a high level of confidence and competence, with the comfort that things are happening on the side. But I do think we should be mindful of the benefit of technology for supervisors and call center managers, because they are often caught up in meetings writing lengthy reports, and reports doesn't add value to anybody. It's insights, and I'd prefer that we use it insights to get better. So yeah, good point
Great.
on your side
Thanks.
as well.
Look, I'm going to. I want to just. I'm sure the audience would love to ask a couple of questions, but
Okay,
Craig, if it's okay with you, I'm also going to ask Shabani just to share your LinkedIn profile link with the audience
sure.
later on, just so that if they want to discuss, what their secret sauce could be, they could arrange that time with you.
Sure.
And then Shabani, is there if you could maybe just come in and let us know if there's any questions that the audience have.
Yeah. So the question reads: debt collection is key. What can one do in a challenged economy where pandemic and inflation eroded the capital of the customers? Can software solve this?
No, software is an enabler. Oh, sorry, can I answer the question? Software is an
Of
enabler.
Yes.
course.
So I think what I've learned over the years, and we have failed, and I'm also honest enough, we have failed. We were poor at planning. I think we all of us, especially in Africa, we are blessed with people that can read into the future. We know that there's something happening next year. We're aware of this. We know that interest rates increase. It's a fact. So there's a lot of key things that happen that you don't have to apply too much of your mind. So I think one of the things is to plan ahead in time and say, what if in the next 12 months, the interest rates, if depending on your type of business, interest rate might benefit you or it might not be great for you. If that happens by X, and this is what I learned also in early 2000s, where I found it strange that when things in a bank, when they kind of know this is going to happen in the next few months, start planning. Not only from a risk point of view, because historically, to the viewer, the risk guys will say, "Hey, let's now cut certain cells. Let's not lend to people that are high risk." That doesn't help collections. It helps you in the future. What do we do with the debtors that we have now? And I think that the answer to your question is the technology is an enabler, and to have it invest early and then say, okay, let's plan 12 months in advance, 6 months in advance, 3 months in advance, and let's do the scenario planning and do it with and collaborate with your software company, your omni-channel guys, the call center guys, HR, the training guys. And that's the discipline that I think is missing. Often we are too reactionary. It's too late when things change and your book deteriorates. Throwing people at it, as I said in my introduction, you're wasting your time. You're wasting money. And I've learned this, guys, actually when I worked in fraud. Because the fraud guys are attacking your system all the time, we were forced to anticipate where are our vulnerabilities, where will they attack next, will it be our people, will it be our machines, will it be, and if we in the collection space can start building that discipline, and this has to come from exco right on top down to say our prediction is X, we foresee this, let's plan. And then, because you freed up your collection staff from reporting and doing other mundane functions, you're getting them now to bring the expertise in to say, well, if we anticipate A, B, and C, we're going to plan for X, Y, and Z. And then you put that in place. So I think if you're already in that cycle, throwing people is not going to solve anything. Get through the cycle, you will get through it. But I would say plan minimum 6 months in advance. And this is the right time. Start planning and make those scenarios, which you are good at anyway as lenders. You know what I mean? Just apply to the collection space. And trust me, trust your collections team. They know stuff you might not, they might be running your contact center, but they know trends, they know your debt as well. So I would say engage them and surprise them by saying, Chantal, what do you think? What should we do? Interest rates have gone up, the economy, unemployment is at whatever. What should we do? And I think, guys, that for me, that for me is the way forward. So let's be a little bit more strategic, collaborate with more people, and don't wait for it to happen. If it waits, it's a sign that if you're worried about it, that you're in that cycle, that's a reflection as advisor that your planning sucks, because this
And
has happened. You're using the economy and all this stuff, but this is public knowledge. So yeah. Sorry, I hope not to offend you. Just
And Craig, also to add on that, what I've seen is, one of the biggest challenges in collections has always been contactability. And so just from a tech being an enabler, and if you maintaining, that communication with your debtors, whether they, the economy is going through, a dip and they can't pay you, as long as you keep those channels open, what happens with, if I take Lead Squid as an example, is you maintain your debtors actually keep their contactability updated for you, which brings down operational costs and a whole lot of other things. So use those times to share helpful information with them to make sure that you are top of mind. You do have that relationship, so that when there is disposable income to repay debt, that you are considered first. So I just
100%.
wanted to add.
Yes, may I add to that? Sorry, let me. I feel I may have been too harsh to the person that asked the question. So maybe if to answer your question, if you're in that situation now, there's, depending on where you're based in Africa, consider using external data. So let's say you're now hitting a bit of a crisis, as you explained in your question. Yeah, there's bureau data that's available. But some of the bureaus operate throughout Africa as well, where they can give you scores to predict people's, if they stop paying other service providers, then you be proactive to say, well, hey, hello, Chantal, I noticed. You don't tell them why you're calling them, but you stop paying your retail card, you stop paying your home loan. So obviously we're next in line. So use data, external data where you can, and also don't underplay your own data. You do have history of this consumer, so you do see that they go through cycles. So that would be a more, let's say, professional sounding answer to you. Planning is definite, but if you're now caught in that, again, partner with your bureaus and your service providers, because they have a very, very again, in Africa, very sophisticated tools that can help you kind of predict who's likely to go bad. And you know what you do? Now you're going to the customer service experience. So the person might not be in arrears yet, but his bureau score is deteriorating. So then call them and say, hey, Shabani, how are you doing? You don't that now it's all, are you okay with our service? How do you like our product? Can you update your contact details? They think it's a customer service call. Meanwhile, it's one of your debt collectors calling. So just changing a role there. So I hope that was useful. Um,
Thanks,
if
Craig.
you're
I think
now
we've got
caught in
another
that situation.
question,
Yeah.
Shabani.
Okay.
Yeah. This is Abdul Aziz, he says, what techniques do you suggest for debt collectors to use to persuade customers to fulfill the obligation of paying? Because what we see is not the tools of collection, but the unwillingness on the part of the customers to pay.
Oh, brilliant question. So we're going back to the technology. So let's assume we've got the best technology. And remember, I came earlier on training. So I think the key thing for you, Abdullah, wherever you're at, what I find lenders, if you are a lender, they are very shy to exercise their rights to recover their debt. In most instances, if you've got a credit agreement, it says you will take legal action, or you will do maybe list them on a credit bureau, or you might hand them over to an attorney. And I find that they don't do it. So I would say, also bearing in mind your consumers getting smarter by the day. So they realize the moment they say to you, hey, I'm going to make a payment next month. Guess what? I would imagine your kept rate or number of debtors that pays around about 60%. What happened to the 40 that committed to pay? They're not convinced that you're willing to execute on what you threatened them. So I would say as soon as you can, and this is where internal data is useful. If you do see that that data consistently breaks their promises, even though they're 30 days or 60 days past due, I would say accelerate the activity there to say, listen here, I've noticed that you consistently make these promises. You do not pay, you're not taking us seriously. Are you aware that if you continue like this, you may be handed over and the following consequences will happen? Do that, number one, and please actually execute on that threat. Don't hold back. Execute on the threat. And it takes you to do it with 10 out of 100 customers. The word will get out that your business is serious about their debt. And once they have it experienced, and that's the one thing. So let's, for argument's sake, say you've threatened the person, you've executed on that legal collection action. Now the account comes back 6 months later, back to 30 days. Here's something that no one has figured out yet. When the account comes back to 30 days, why do you welcome that person to 30 days? If you're doing that, it means you haven't tracked the past to say, but hey, I noticed you come from our attorneys. I've noticed that we've issued the summons 3 months ago. So you understand what we are willing to do to get our money back. So I think the customer education for me is critical as well. And I've yet to see, Abdullah, any company willing to do that and say to you to say, Abdullah, do you understand that if you don't do this, this is going to happen? Please do it. They have to have that experience to understand that they're serious. What these customers do is that they realize that you're not serious, and they'll just make promises and promises and promises. So I think that's the key thing. In summary, educate your customer, execute. Don't only do idle threats. Customers very smart. They'll realize they'll just make promises. And if they do go through the legal process and they do recover, acknowledge that they came back from the legal process. Don't treat them as a new debtor. So those are the things, and it's still going to come down to training as well. But a very, very good question. Thanks for asking.
Thanks, Craig. Shabania, have we got any other questions? I think some really, really great questions, but I think we are.
Yes, very good.
I don't see any more coming in, Chantel.
Great. Okay, well then I think we should.
We should be able to wrap up now, but it was really an excellent discussion for 60 minutes, the action-packed insights. I think we're going to do an ebook on this with all your tips, Craig. Yeah, it was really insightful. So thank you so much for your time, for giving us this 1 hour on a Friday evening. For me, for Friday afternoon, perhaps for you.
No.
And we look forward to again having you back perhaps sometime in the next year.
No, thanks for the opportunity, and it was nice. Very good questions to all of you, and I wish you guys well. And I think, look, guys, I think if that's the only thing you remember, just invest in your people, invest in technology, and collaborate with your strategic partners. Your biggest and most important partner are your agents working in your contact center. Don't overlook them. Invest in them, and I think you can do. And then, most importantly, plan way in advance. But I wish you well, and I know with the partnership with the guys like Lead Squared, you guys are on the right track. So all the best for next year, and have a very good festive season if you do celebrate.
Craig, thanks so much for spending the time with us, and to our audience, and happy holidays, and goodbye for now.
Take
Cheers.
care, everyone.
Goodbye.
Happy
Bye-bye.
holidays.
Bye.
Have a good year. Bye-bye.
You too.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.